The stage is set for a fight over environmental laws when federal parliament returns next week. Among Murray Watt's reforms is a requirement to report the carbon footprint of a potential project and outline a plan to reduce emissions. Companies that breach laws would be stripped of any financial advantage and fined up to $825 million. The minister would also have the power to issue stop work orders to prevent harm to the environment. There will be no climate trigger, though, as we understand. Well, joining us live is the National Senate leader, Bridget McKenzie, and the independent MP, Zali Stegall. Good morning to you both. So, Bridget, I'll start with you here because I was speaking to Kevin Hogan about this yesterday and he had major reservations about it. Susan Lee is against it so far. The Greens are against it so far. So where are the Nats on this today?
Well, we want strong environmental laws, obviously, but we want to get projects up and going. We haven't seen the legislation yet in detail. It sounds like it's just a rebranded version of Tanya Plibersek's nature positive laws. And as you say, actually links in the legislation to the Labor Party's emission reduction targets. We've seen the EPBC Act weaponised over the years past to actually stop projects by those who don't want to see our prosperity grow and who don't want to see these projects go forward. We've just signed off on a really important critical minerals processing deal with the United States this week, and I can't see this type of legislation making that easier to get the environmental approvals. So we need a system that works, that gets the projects up and going and protects the environment, and it doesn't look like this is going to get the job done. OK,
Zali, your thoughts on this? The concern from business is the increases that the burden would have on green tape. Would you be worried about it affecting, as Bridget just pointed out, the critical minerals deal with the US?
Well, I think it's really hard to go down into such a specific detail. You have to look at particular proponents and applications and their details. The difficulty I've got is the government has been very shady about what it's proposing with the EPBC Act. It hasn't been willing to discuss or show an exposure draft. We have not seen this legislation. It's being leaked out into the media. I, in fact, met with Murray Watt about a couple of months ago with a proposal around an amendment that would bring the EPBC Act disclosure requirements in line with what ASX 100 company and financial institutes already disclose when it comes to their TCFD, which is their the financial risk disclosure around climate change and environmental impact. And we've simply had no answer. You can't get a meeting, you don't get a call return from the Minister's office. So it's very shady what's happening at the moment for such significant legislation. OK,
well, Murray Watt's coming up in the program in about 5 or so minutes, so I'll be sure to put that to him. But Zali, and I'll ask you both this question. Zali, you've got this fine line where you've got to protect the environment but also expand mining. So how do you have both?
Well, with respect, I don't know if you automatically have to expand mining. I think we have to ensure we have a system that allows for worthy projects that will genuinely benefit the Australian people in terms of economic development and opportunity, but also have it has to be a manageable risk to the environment. What we're seeing is in Australia, we have a biodiversity loss crisis at the moment, and we still have massive rates of deforestation. So the simplest way we can really deal with emissions is, in fact, through the absorption through our forests, right? And the Minister, as I understand it, is still not willing to really look at the problem of deforestation in the EPBC Act. So again, we're in the dark with where they're really going, and I think they're trying to pit the coalition, the Greens, the crossbench, everybody against us, and they're just not willing this. They're not being frank with the Australian people about where they're going with this legislation.
Have you got a thought on that question, Bridget?
Well, I'm a believer in the triple bottom line. You know, it needs to balance the economic, the social and the environmental impacts. You shouldn't be preferencing one of those over another. The fact is mining and resources do underpin our whole economy. So all of the things that we enjoy, publicly funded education, health system, comes on the back of this. And so there needs to be a sensible prioritisation within a regime that gives those of us that want to see the environment protected comfort, but that doesn't serve as a blocker, which currently is the case.
Okay. Well, again, got Murray Watt coming up next, so we'll talk more about that. Just a final one here, Zali. This is a push that you're big on at the moment. The major streaming companies are being pushed to show more Australian content. We all want to see that, by the way. So you want Tony Burke and Anthony Albanese to deliver on its commitment to put minimums into law. Can you explain?
Well, yeah, the Australian sort of screen industry, so think writers, production, set makers, filming, directors, has shrunk by 60% because for recent years, a huge amount of revenue gets sent offshore to international streamers, but very little investment back into our Australian industry. And there's 55,000 jobs on the line in this sector, and Labor has gone to the 2019, 2022 and 2025 election promising to implement local streaming content quotas to ensure we protect this Australian industry. Think amazing stories, you know, Skippy, Strictly Ballroom, all those, Crocodile Dundee. We want to make sure Aussie kids speak with Aussie accents and have Aussie stories.
True.
Unless we do this, we will lose it.
Okay. Bridget, would you support Zali's push here? Should there be, you know, minimums placed into law for Australian content?
Well, I'm a huge supporter of free-to-air TV, Pete, and Sky, obviously, but free-to-air TV serves a really critical role in our country.
Yeah, what about the streamers?
They're finding it hard to compete against streamers. They're finding it hard to compete because between 6 a.m. and midnight, 55% of their content has to be local. So as more eyeballs shift from free-to-air TV onto streaming platforms, it's going to be more and more difficult for our local production companies, for our local actors and screenwriters and the like, to actually have work to produce. So if Labor's promised it, Labor has to deliver it because they've had the great privilege of government. People have voted for them to implement this policy. Get on with it, guys. You've won 2 elections now.
Would you support it, though,
and I think it says more about their inability to deliver promises. I haven't seen anything, Pete. They're the ones that went to an election promising it. Put it on the table and we can discuss it. But right now, it's just another Labor broken promise.
We will have to leave it there. Zali and Bridget, as always, thank you so much on this Friday morning. Have a great weekend.